Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Elmo. Elmo really like talking about Pet Sematary. Elmo love a good horror movie.
Welcome, Elmo, to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Oh, thank you, Miss Daphne, for having me. It's going to be a very fun time. Talk about the blood and the gore and the zombies and the ancient rituals. It's always so much fun.
I appreciate you filling in for Pake this week.
Yeah, I kind of killed him, and then I buried him in the wrong place. He didn't come back, so I figured it's kind of my responsibility to take over.
Oh, okay. Do you think you can get us through what the episode's about this week?
Oh, yeah, well, you see, I'm not kind of scared, so, I didn't finish it, so I can tell you, this family moves into a new house, and then the cat kind of was scary, so I stopped watching.
Okay. So what you're really saying, Elmo, is I'm on my own this week.
Yeah, oh, hang on. No, never mind, I buried Pake in the right place, and he's back now, Oh, God, it just took a little extra time, so now he's back.
Okay.
So,
Great.
I'm gonna go back to Sesame Street and go hang out with my friends and totally not kill them. Oh, because I'm totally reformed from murder now.
That is really good to hear. I'm sure that they wouldn't want a murderer on Sesame Street.
No. Last time we had one, it didn't go very well.
I bet
not. He got relocated to Elm Street instead.
Oh, that's great. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Gerald. Anyway, I'm gonna go now, okay? Bye!
That was weird. He, just to those who are worried about that, he didn't kill me or anybody. He literally, it was like patting me on the head, going, "I'm gonna kill you." It was fine. He didn't bury me.
So he didn't kill you?
No, he watches these movies, or at least thinks he watches some of it, and then he gets these weird imaginative ideas. Like, I was getting a drink. I'm
oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, this has probably been the most exciting
So I'm not
opening.
some, resurrected Evil Dead situation from Pet Sematary. I'm not going to sit here and, have some evil spirit possessing me halfway through the podcast. I'm me. I'm fine. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because you're coming here in a couple of weeks, and I would rather you come and not...
yeah, no
shell of
scalpels
Pake.
to the Achilles.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
No.
You're fine.
I don't want a Wendigo infused Pake coming.
No. I'm good.
So no. Okay, good.
But
well, this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Yeah.
Do you want to let folks know what this episode is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know how much Elmo. Yeah, spoiler, or not spoiler, but people now know Elmo's my roommate. It's when he's not over on Sesame Street. It's weird. He's fun. Yeah. So yeah, this week, this episode is part 2 of our double dip this season, and we are covering the supernatural horror film Pet Sematary, directed by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmyer, and released April 5th, 2019. It is the 2019 remake of the original that we covered last week.
And this came out about 30 years after the original film. The original film came out in 1989, so
yeah.
30 years later, I can't even believe that I'm saying that, but 30 years later, we get this remake, and it's almost more than a remake, because some of it seems like a reimagining in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a whole bunch of things that I'll be sprinkling in while we're talking about this episode. Specifically about the cats, too. Like, what...
Oh, really?
the cats that they used and some of the techniques that they used to get those effects. And yeah, just some basic stuff as well. So looking forward to sharing that in this episode. But we should probably, since we had that wonderful introduction from Elmo, I'm so glad that he decided to pop on.
Yeah.
While you were, just getting a drink. So I'm glad that he decided to pop on and say hi. It's always good to chat with him. Mm-hmm. I figured that we should probably get started the way that we always do, with some production notes. This, unlike the original film, this was filmed in Montreal, Saint Lazare, and Hudson, Quebec, Canada. Like last week, it's based on that same novel, 1983 novel of the same name by the great and wonderful Stephen King. Mm-hmm. Jeff Bueller wrote the script for this one. Stephen King really didn't have anything to do with this movie. The budget was $21 million. It grossed $113 million. It's 101 minutes long. Pake, bring on a synopsis.
See last week's synopsis. It's exactly the same. It works word for word.
Excellent. I'm glad. Awesome. Good. Yeah.
It's a fun thing about a double dip sometimes is I'm like, yeah, we're talking about the same story, just a little different. We will talk about differences. And yeah, there are, like I said, it's a retelling, or it is the exact same story as far as the main points are hit, the same things and outcomes happen. They just switch some things up. I think, honestly, they purposely did some things differently just so where, like, readers or, like, fans of the original 1989 movie would be caught off guard and would get some surprises of their own.
Yeah, it's interesting. Kevin Kolsch was interviewed, and he said, when you're making an adaptation, you want to do as much new, fresh things that you can because there's already an existing movie. But at the same time, you want to make sure you're staying true to the essence of the book so that people still feel like they're getting Stephen King's Pet Sematary. I thought that was, pretty clear about what they were going for. They wanted to keep the essence, but they wanted to twist it up, I think, to keep viewers, on their toes. Yeah. And they kind of did, because there were some different clever little fake outs at times. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I liked that because I was expecting one thing and that's not what happened, or it did happen, but not the way that I was expecting it. So I appreciated the effort that they put into adding the tension and making things, interesting for viewers who enjoyed the first movie. Mm-hmm. I will say the following before we jump into the discussion. I watched the previews for the movie before I went to see it in the theater. The preview, a lot of it had to do with that little funeral procession for the dog. And so it kind of led you to believe that there was maybe more of the mysticism and the lore involved, or more with that procession than we really got, because that
was literally all we got was just the one scene.
Yeah. I feel like they took the whole scene and they put it in the trailer, but they split it all up, and the drums in the background and the creepy masks and the kids. I thought it was going to be more of that, but it was kind of filled with tension in a different way. I think it was darker, but also more ritualistic in some ways. And they also pulled away from the Micmac piece because they didn't really include that at all. Yeah. In the original film, they talked about the Micmac Indians. And in this one, they basically were saying, no, the Native Americans left because they knew the power in that area was bad. Yeah. And so they left. Both of the directors actually wanted to have a more culturally sensitive explanation because they didn't want it to focus so much on the evil or the darkness being tied to the indigenous people.
Yeah.
They wanted it to just be different. And I like that. It's kind of updated for the times. And I think that in this movie, there were some updates that made sense because they were changing from 30 years ago to now. And there's a lot more that you can do.
Yes, absolutely.
And get away with. And I've got a list of some of the changes, but we can talk about that later. I feel like we have to dive in or dig in this case.
Yeah.
With our number one character right off the bat.
Yeah, so say it like every week, but unless you're just randomly jumping in on this episode, which some people very well probably are. So welcome. But yeah, we like to just talk characters, break it down. We hope you go back and listen to last week's 1989 Pet Sematary episode, because we will be referencing, at least I know, I won't speak for Daphne 100%, but I know I will be referencing a lot of differences and things that are kind of similar or different between the two movies on the second episode of a double dip. It is more referential and, comparing them. But,
yeah, one of our friends actually asked me earlier, isn't your Pet Sematary episode out yet? And I said, nope, tomorrow. It was Amelie. She was really she's really looking forward to listening to it, so.
By the time she's hearing this, it's been out for over a week now. But she's
exactly.
So
I hope you liked it, Amelie.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see feedback on things. But yeah, anyway, so where we start, we talk character to character, kind of go through different arcs. So we'll do, I think it's the same. I have an extra little section that I didn't have last week. But yeah, we'll kind of do the same thing character-wise. So we start with Lewis Creed. I'll be honest, his section is way shorter this week than it was last week, because I didn't really want to just recap a lot of the same story points that we've already talked about with him, but definitely some things that I'll talk about. But a lot of the other major story lines I kind of credited to other characters that I wanted to talk about instead.
I felt like he had a much closer connection with his family than I felt from the first movie. Mm-hmm. I felt like the Lewis in this movie, especially with his daughter and his wife, not so much with Gage, but I really felt more of a family connection.
Yeah.
Between the four of them that I really didn't get in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got it, but it wasn't like this. This just felt, I guess, more genuine. It just came across as
Well, it starts
a
off
bigger
with
connection.
Him and Ellie having this more personal connection, even having, you want to be the first one that goes in and explores and picks. It's it's very...
Yeah.
He's much more loving, doting, there for everyone, father and husband. So I think they did play that up a little bit more, which I guess adds to then this kind of twist of this fantastical and horror element of him bringing his child back to life from the dead, to where you're you've seen the bad things. It's again, it's why would you do, what kind of idiot would do this? But you really see the toll it takes on him and why. I mean, he almost seems mad at the end as to why he did the things that he does.
Well, and even when he's at the funeral and you can see the single tear, the tear coming down his cheek, he's looking at Judd and you can tell he's already thinking that he's going to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a note about that you can see that they share a glance for sure.
Yep.
He's already well, I know what I can do, but...
Yeah, and he actually, in this instance, in this film, he actually makes sure that no one can stand in his way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happenstance of too much alcohol. It's a specific situation. See, he actually goes and does something because he doesn't want anyone to stand in his way of doing what he feels he needs to do. As terrible as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he even, the whole situation with church, too. There's just so much. But I feel we have to start, he, like you said, he lets Ellie take the key and go run into the house first.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very sweet of him to do. Because, kids... when kids move to a new place, they're going to go to a new school. There's a lot of change, and a lot of kids, kids are resilient. They're able to handle stuff like this. But I'm not sure that even though this was good for them, they needed to do this because he was working in the ER in Boston versus Chicago.
Yeah, notice that. They moved from Boston. It's a little closer. They didn't have as far to travel. And there's driving back and forth versus flying back and forth within this
it's much
movie.
easier.
Yeah.
But he, you get the sense that life was just taking a toll on them, so they have to leave. And they want a more quiet life in the country where he can spend more time with his family, because he really was working late. He just wasn't having the family time. Yeah. And I didn't get the impression that his daughter really wanted to go or move, because even later she talks about, I just want to go home. Like, I want to go back. So I think he was trying in his way to make things better for her, like give her adventure, give her happiness, give her something to look forward to or get excited about, because he knew that she wasn't 100% on board.
Yeah.
And it's hard with kids. I mean, it is an adjustment. I know parents that have said, oh, well, my kids, they knew we just had to move. We had to do it. We had to move for this job. We had to move for that job. And it's like, yeah, but it is hard on kids. Kids, it's hard for them to adjust, to continually have to adjust. Yeah, so, sure. I think when you start having a family and you're thinking about providing for your family, it's great to consider those job opportunities, but you also have to think about it can't just be about money. And maybe I'm the one that's got my priorities wrong. I think it's important to think about, the kids too.
Yeah, I get that. But yeah, so like you said, it even though, it is a job, but I think it's also, he does have that kind of family thing in mind, as he's overworked and dealing with so much stress and terrible things in the job that he had in Boston, to where, I mean, it looks like he's literally working like as a more glorified school nurse. Like, not really, but it's it's a campus hospital. Like, he's there for the students at this like university, it's a much more laid back position with a lot less stress and insane things. At least he thinks, until he meets old Victor Pascal. But
yeah, at first though, he's dealing just with bloody noses.
Right.
And I feel like in the first film, they get to him meeting Victor Pascal very, much quicker.
Yeah.
In this, I feel like we get to know them just a little bit more before he goes in. And he goes to work and he, has bloody noses to deal with. And then he's there and he deals with Victor Pascal, who is much different in this movie, but we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I liked where we started. Of course, before we get all this kind of family set up in his life, I thought it was interesting how the movie started with the end. Like, it did that, showing the aftermath first. You get, Judd's house on fire. There's blood and carnage left behind. But then really before you kind of see the twist of the end, then they jump back to the Creed family in the car, moving into their new town, driving in, welcome to Ludlow, a.k.a. Murder Truck, Maine. Some shit went down in the 80s and we had to change the name, but, we're Ludlow now.
I knew you were probably going to go there again.
I mean, it's still the trucks. Because when they move into the house, damn it, that stupid fucking truck, that first truck, I even jumped at it. When it got Rachel, it got me too. And I'm like, I know this movie. I've seen it before. I know the story. We just covered the first, the original.
Yeah.
And still that truck got me.
You know what makes it a little bit creepier is the fact that there are so many trees around that it kind of shields you from the sound even.
Yeah.
So that when it goes by, it's like instantaneous. It's not like, oh, there's a truck coming. It's like, oh God, a truck. And it scares the crap out of you.
Yeah. There's all this tree cover right there on that road. And it makes it more believably dangerous. It's not this mile of open road to see it coming.
Right. It's much different. It's secluded. You feel, you would never know. And then all of a sudden it's there, and I'm with you. I jumped, and it's like, I know this movie. I know how this goes, but oh my gosh. You can't remember every truck that goes by.
No. Honestly, I forgot about most of the twists in this movie, and I saw this one first, but it's been, I saw it when it came out in 2019, and then, like, haven't really paid it any thought since then.
There's a lot.
It still felt like a fresh first watch on this one, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too, because I haven't seen it since it came out. And I knew what was going to happen, but I forgot about a lot of things.
Yeah. So unless you really want to talk about them, I'm skipping over quite a few things as far as the introduction of the Pet Sematary and the introduction of Judd and all of that, because, talk about those other characters.
Yeah. But it was different this time.
It's a little different. But it leads to the same place, where when Ellie realizes what it is, and it leads to this similar conversation between Lewis and Ellie, where they have that conversation about death. And it's very, very much kind of the same conversation as the original movie. Rachel being uncomfortable with the concept and the conversation. The big difference is that she actually is part of the conversation. She's not listening in secret. She's putting in her 2 cents, and she's bringing up heaven and this afterlife kind of thing to kind of play I was going to say devil advocate, but the opposite, the angel's advocate, the opposite of what Lewis is saying. And I like how she's like, well, what he meant to say is that the body is in the dirt, but the soul of the animals is in heaven, like your grandma. And he's like, I love that little look. He's like, no, that's actually not what I meant at all. But we're going to avoid that argument. So, sure. And then it just go to Ellie, like, hey, Ellie, just Google "We're All Stardust" later.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff in there. You'll figure it out.
I feel like he was talking to Ellie like she was a little adult in some ways. The way that
me personally, I deal with kids at that age regularly. I think you should.
Yeah.
I think at that age, I think he was kind of right with saying she's at that age. She's 9 in this movie. Where it's like, we can't just like hide things that are basic concepts of life that as people grow up, you need to understand and like mature with. And I think kids at that age really don't want to be talked to like a child all the time.
No, they don't.
I mean, clearly, like, there's still things that are very much a defined line between, like, they are a kid and they're a child and they don't need certain adult elements and themes and conversations. But for things like that, it's like you start to kind of sprinkle those in, where it's like, when we're going to have a serious conversation about something that you are curious about and want to talk about, I'm not going to treat you like a little toddler and be like, oh, it's the magical things in the stars. Like, no, we're going to have a real conversation if that's what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was talking to her like, I mean, and you can understand, I mean, he's trying to have this conversation and they're not on the same page. He and Rachel are not on the same page about it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think they were really prepared to have that conversation at all. But the whole Pet Sematary thing just brought things to the forefront. And so they were trying to answer it, or he was trying to answer it. There was no time to kind of have a huddle ahead of time and say, hey, what are we going to say about this if it comes up? It was just kind of like, boom, here it is.
Yeah. Which is usually how that's going to go. You can't ever prepare for really anything.
No, you can't.
Learn to roll with punches. But I do like that they're kind of split, that dichotomy between them. I think it adds... I know this movie does not have great reviews. Don't look at Rotten Tomatoes if you're interested. But honestly, I really like it. I think it is great. And what adds to the strength of it is that difference between them. I think that early in the movie, them really painting Lewis as a hard atheist that has no belief in anything after death, it's a great story device, in my opinion, because as the events of this story unfold and reveal to him that there sometimes is something beyond death, but sometimes, well, we know the saying, dead is better. So I think having him start that way and then go through these things at the movie makes it that much more impactful and dramatic to him.
Yeah, because he basically gets his whole belief system shook by what he sees happening, because he doesn't believe it, but then he's faced with it, and it's like he's getting hit on the head. It's like, here you go. No, you don't believe? Okay, well, this is what you're going to see. And he has to wrestle with it. And I think watching him go through this, like going through wrestling with what his beliefs are and what he's faced with and the contemplation and the guilt and the frustration and the knowing he's doing something wrong. I mean, we've all had that friend that you tell them not to do something because it's not good for them, but they still keep doing it anyway. I feel like he knows it's not the right thing to do, but he feels like he has to try.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course it starts with the cat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of those things are the same. You mentioned even Pascal is a very similar situation where he...
Mm-hmm.
Quite gruesome in here, but it's a lot of the same as he's faced with this. He does what he can, but I mean, there's no saving this kid. It's over. And of course, then after he's dead, then he comes back. But then we don't get the ground Estonia or the heart of man Estonia. We don't get those kind of things. Really, all we get from the dead Pascal here is the barrier isn't meant to be crossed, and that's about all he says. Now we do see him, pop up more, Pascal, in the later portions of the movie. I was wondering, I didn't remember if this movie, revealed more than the original as what was special about him. No, it still doesn't. I have some thoughts on that when we get to a different section I will talk about, but...
Yeah, what I did appreciate, though, is that, and we'll dig into this more later, the Wendigo became a point of discussion at one point, and we got a little bit into that lore, and the way that they included it, I thought was solid instead of, this is a cartoon. Mm-hmm. It was much more about the ritual, this area, this ground, this barrier that's not supposed to be crossed. Mm-hmm. And then the Wendigo and the evil. Yeah,
there's a more ominous, dark, evil presence that really makes itself felt in this movie more than the original managed to portray.
Oh my god, yeah, this is kind of scary. Mm-hmm. There were parts of this I'm I'm not watching this at night.
Yeah,
and I love horror, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm jumping a little bit ahead to another point, but while I'm thinking about it, because with Rachel, is we get a lot of these. We think, oh, it's just because of things that are going on. She's thinking about her sister more and all these. But honestly, with some of the things that happen to her in this movie, it's that, but also this evil that has been awakened because of what has happened and is now active in this area is actively creeping into her mind and messing with her and
tormenting her. Yeah. It really was a lot of torment. And I don't know if it was the actress and the way she portrayed Rachel, but I had more empathy in this one than I did in the first one.
Yeah.
I think because I just connected more, I think, with the characters.
Yeah.
Than I did in the first one. I mean, the original one, I just felt cold a little bit at times. This one, I felt there was a little more warmth in the family piece of it. And so I connected more.
Yeah. And then you mentioned the other kind of similarity with Church, and all of that kind of goes the same. We really don't get anything of Church before. He was kind of established more as a living, normal family cat before what happened in the original. This one is that's our cat Church, and we'll never speak of him or see him again until after these events happen.
Ellie does say to Judd, his name is Winston Churchill, and Judd says, I know who Winston Churchill is. It's funny because he actually, John Lithgow played Winston Churchill on The Crown. Yeah. And I just think that's kind of cool how that was included. It's that's kind of neat. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of the same things. Judd brings Lewis over to the place by the road where he found, quote unquote, Church's dead body. Sure, if we're going to go with that.
We are going to go with that. We are.
But this time it is different. The family's not away for Thanksgiving. They are there. It's actually Halloween. But Lewis is still able to hide it from Ellie.
Barely.
What's also new about this one is that Rachel is made aware of Church's death. In the 1989 original version, Rachel never knew because, again, the whole family was gone, and even Church's resurrection was just done in secret and never spoken about.
Yeah, that's true. I did think that Church looked much more like he'd been hit by something in this version than what we saw before.
Yeah.
He looked pretty rough.
But there's, again, I could talk about things to connect these notes, but we will get to them more,
We're going to get to
with
them.
Judd. But we will get, to the burial and resurrection of Church and the things that happen.
Yes.
Where we see that there's something not right. Just something ain't right about that cat, I'll tell you what. But
well, he was in the closet. Okay. Yeah. No cat I know would be sitting in a closet just quiet like that, waiting to be called upon. No.
Right.
No.
But I love, and then Lewis is going to go confront Judd about that, which, again, it's other Judd notes, but I will talk to one. You have this, evil villain Judd being very nonchalant about the resurrection of this family cat. It's like, it's what you wanted, right? And it's, no, you literally said this is nothing weird was going to happen.
Well, Judd did say he cared about Ellie.
Yeah.
And he didn't want her to be sad because, he hasn't had anyone touch his heart in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That was very sweet. But you're right. He didn't tell Lewis anything. He just took him up into the mountains. It looked like it was mountains.
So that's weird. So then Lewis comes back and he's like, why is the cat undead? And he's like, that's what you wanted. It's like, you literally told me that nothing, that we were burying a dead cat. No. So you gotta do it. So he talks with Judd. And so you mentioned, after Judd's story about his dog, and the Wendigo and the sometimes dead is better does come up there. That's what leads Lewis to kind of make this plan to euthanize Church.
Yep.
But Church is able to shift a little bit into his, we're just a poor sweet little kitty mode, and so
he decides to abandon him on the road. So
just leave him somewhere on the other side of town. That's a better option, I guess.
And if you think, I can't say. Right
I don't want to inject him with a needle and let him pass peacefully in his sleep. No, the more humane thing to do is drive him across town, drop him off where he'll get ripped to shreds by a coyote. That's...
You know what, though? Given what was possessing him at the time, I don't know that a coyote would have won.
No. Yeah, no, not at all.
No, not at all. I think him doing that sets in motion him burying Church in that tainted earth.
Yes.
Set some things in motion.
Absolutely.
But him taking Church across town and leaving him there also set more things in motion.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a theory about Ellie and the cat and all of that.
Interesting. I can't wait to hear.
Yeah.
Yes, he does that. And then it's just the lie again, where, Church ran away. So now Ellie is sad at her birthday party about Church running away, quote unquote, again. But don't worry, because Lewis is there, Dad's there to give her a little stuffed cat doll as a present. This one can't die and come back from the grave with wicked intent, so that's better for you.
That would not be enough. I'd want my cat. Like, that's... Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which she cherishes and loves that doll for minutes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, I think, later. Because again, I'm focusing a little more on Lewis. But yes, tragedy strikes the same but different as the first one. And then we get the situation leading to Lewis deciding to resurrect his child, his daughter in this instance. I mean, I'm not going to try to hide it. I don't want to spoil. People are watching this. If they've watched the movie, they know. And but then he is alone because Rachel needs to get away, go home after losing a child. It's the same, perfectly understandable. Takes Gage, goes to her parents.
But we didn't get the crazy father freaking out at the funeral this time. No,
I think there was a little hint at it.
Yes,
when they're getting in the car to drive off,
yes,
there's this look from Rachel's father.
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of a little contemptuous look, but that's all it was.
Yeah. And when you see Rachel at the house, you can tell it's a beautiful, large, like, her family's rich.
Yeah. But yeah, we have Lewis staying behind. He says the same as in the first one. He's like, oh, I just need to like finish some stuff up at the office at the, over there in the hospital, and odds and ends, get things together, and then I'll go and join you. But really he's staying behind because I don't even know if I can say contemplating. I think he has made up his mind pretty quickly.
He made up his mind at the funeral.
Yeah. About something that he can do, capable of, and willing to do.
Even though it's a really bad idea.
Yeah. You get that soundboard. I'll have to look into that. I'm going to have to talk to Ben. He has a soundboard. I got to figure out how to do all that. I've never
Oh my gosh. Wouldn't that be fun?
But I think next season might be a thing for it.
3 years of podcasting. It's time.
It is time.
It is time.
Yeah. I do wonder, though. So Lewis has a shovel to dig up Ellie's body, but then he doesn't bring it to what is called Little God Swamp on that map. So then he digs the grave there with a rock. Okay.
Because he leaves his shovel behind. I'm like,
why would you?
Why would you leave your shovel?
Mm-hmm. And then a lot of it kind of plays out the same. After burying Ellie, goes back home, waits, and he falls asleep. And he wakes to some sound downstairs. So he goes downstairs and he sees the church is back. Like, hello, Louise. And then he sees little footprints. And where you see one set of footprints is where your ancient dark magic zombie daughter carried a creepy mask.
Yes. Now, at first, you don't get the impression that she's evil.
Yeah.
She seems very kind of like she's woken up from a long nap. She's really kind of half there. Mm-hmm. He puts her in the bath. He's brushing her hair. A little bit.
Recreates his favorite governor scene from The Walking Dead.
I wondered about that, yes. He's brushing her hair. He's talking to her. And things actually don't seem ominous yet.
Mm-hmm.
He puts her to bed. But when he gets up the next day, she's downstairs dancing in her old dirty dress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's dabbling with some new performance art that she's into. It's destructive ballet. It's hot with the kids these days.
You know what? Destructive Ballet is a great band name, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. Could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Judd coming over sets in a whole thing in motion, which again, I have an extra section where I really wanted to talk about more of the undead characters as their own section in a lot of the things. So we'll get to the real gory details in that, I think. But
okay.
But it leads to Judd's death, and when Lewis finds Judd, I think he realizes the horror of what he's done a little bit better. This movie would not have ended with him deciding to resurrect Rachel the way he did in the first one. Not that he's given that option, really. But
no, he isn't. That was another twist.
Yeah. But after seeing Judd dead and what Ellie has become and has done, yeah, Lewis ends his story in this movie, at least the living Lewis that we know, really realizing the error of his ways, and he gets back to the house in time to get Gage to safety for a time. But it's too late for Rachel, which is interesting. But, her last words to him are, "Do not bury me in that place." Because what kind of idiot would do that? Maybe Lewis from an alternate timeline. But
no, Lewis from every timeline would do that.
Yeah. However, non-Ellie is able to unfulfill Rachel's last wish.
She's very strong, that Ellie.
Yeah.
We got a lot more Ellie in this movie.
Yes.
We'll talk about her more later. But Jete Lawrence was incredible in this film. Incredible what she brought to Ellie. I connected with her character, was devastated when she died.
Oh, yeah. I legit, knowing what was going on and knowing... After she dies and there's the funeral and then there's a scene of Rachel laying in bed and, like, visions of, like, her daughter's face, being smiling and happy and stuff, I legit was like tearing up. And I was like, and it's just, she's so cute. And it's just.
Yeah, and she brought a lot of depth to the character of Ellie that we didn't get in the first film.
Right.
I mean, we didn't get nearly there's so much Ellie that she's actually a fully fleshed out character.
Yeah.
When she dies. And so it affects you differently. We didn't get that in the first film
right.
I don't think with any of them really, not that much. Mm-hmm. It was just much different.
Yeah.
I feel like it was straightforward and just not the depth. There wasn't as much depth to the characters.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's all I really have on Lewis. But if you've got more,
no, I don't. I think we should move on.
All right. Well, before we move on, I have something special for this episode. Kind of kept it from you. You didn't even know. It's a surprise for you. We're going to have to go to an ad break for a second. That's right. I kept it from you. We have a sponsor this week. Our very first sponsor on Run for Your Lives. Never done ads, so I got to do this little ad section, and then we can get to others. So our sponsor this week, Run for Your Lives, this episode is brought to you by Orinco Trucking Company. We deliver grief and agony to you and your family at breakneck speeds. Our dedication is stonier than others. So call today because sometimes Orinco is better. And listeners of Run for Your Lives, right now, you can get 50% off your first Orinco delivery by going to orincotrucking.murder and use the promo code Judd's the Bad Guy to receive a full 50% off your first order of devastation. Again, that is orincotrucking.murder, promo code Judd's the Bad Guy. Thank you. Back to the show.
All right. Well, back to the show, Pake. Who's up next on the list of characters?
We can move on to Judd next.
Okay, let's move on to Judd.
I think that's what we did last time. And then kind of I have the rest of the Creed family. And then, like I said, a really big section more on the undead and Wendigo possessed varieties of characters. And
excellent.
Things. So yeah, Judd,
right.
Buckle up because I think it's just going to be a rehash of the same thing last week where I try to convince you of things and you just have to go along with it. No,
well, I don't, but we'll see where we go with that.
I think it was interesting they made Biffer, the hell of a sniffer, Judd's dog in this version, sans the terribly forced rhyme. So that was nice. We didn't have to deal with that. That's all we get.
Yeah, we didn't get any names of any pets, really. We had creepy masks on graves. I don't know. It's like that cat mask was waiting for Ellie to grab it. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Yeah, the dog's name was Spot in the book.
Yeah.
So this was just something that they did for this movie.
Well, I mean, it's a reference to that sign that I made fun of their like terrible forced rhyme in the first one. So it's like, oh, I love at least we get Biff for the sniffer. That
yeah.
But of course, then that's have that conversation between Ellie and Judd where we first meet him, kind of helps her up after she falls and gets a bee sting and helps her out. But then as the Creed girls leave, we see the burial grounds beyond calling to Judd because he has a job to do. Just accept it, Daphne. It'll make everything much easier. That's how. No. Because you see they're whispering. There are whispers and he's responding.
The only thing that I will agree with is that he did take Lewis there to Barry Church without giving him any information about what was going to happen. And that, I think, was wrong. But I don't think he sits there in his property waiting for people to move in so he can get them sacrificed.
I don't think it's necessarily that, but it is a thing where there's a supernatural connection. I still really believe that if these burial grounds whisper and speak to him and say, hey, we need something, he's the one that's got to set it in motion. So again, I didn't see any trucks. before Church died.
No, Church looked like he'd been hit by a car this
Or
time.
a hammer that Judd was holding. I don't know.
No.
I mean, again, Church seems to be very pleased and happy with the murder and death of Judd at the end of the movie, in both versions. Almost as like, ha, payback's a bitch, huh, old man? I don't know.
I don't think so, but okay.
'Cause Church likes to watch Judd die in both versions.
He does. Church is kind of a mastermind, but that kind of goes into something that...
I don't know. Maybe the first person that dies has to be the one that killed him.
I don't think so.
I do like that Judd's wife Norma is mentioned in this movie.
Me
and
too.
She is canon to this version, but also she has already passed on because I haven't read the book. But from what I understand, she's sick and dying when the Creed family moves in, and actually Lewis kind of helps her at that end of life situation in the book, and even in this version, she's already gone, and it's just Judd there. I will say Judd...
The Creeds were definitely affected by her death in the book.
Yeah. We'll say Judd definitely has a much creepier aura in this movie than the original. Maybe it's just because it's the Trinity Killer. AKA John Lithgow, who I love so much.
And not Herman Munster.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty creeped out by him. But I also was endeared to him, too. Like, it was...
Yeah.
Because he was
forming...
He really was forming this bond with Ellie. Like, you could see that they were connecting, and Ellie brought him cookies, and I thought that was the cutest thing. Like, she's like, I baked some cookies, and she's looking for him, and
that's kind of what breaks him, and I think what makes him cause a lot, or do a lot of things he does at the end of the movie, is the fact that the things he set in motion caused Ellie's death. And that's, I mean, whether
that's
on purpose
true.
Or on accident.
Right.
Either way, you look at it.
It did. Yeah, it did cause, yes. Much like in the first film, taking Church to that burial ground. Mm-hmm. That started things in motion.
Now, what's interesting is because Judd and Lewis go to bury Church in the Pet Sematary, the first part. Even Judd is like, yeah, we're just doing it here. And then Judd talks Lewis into taking the body beyond after a voice speaks to him. Again, it's there. I don't know how to use it. They're literally, we're going to bury it right here. And then there's like, ooh, evil whispering. And then Judd's like, you know what? I just had this crazy idea come out of nowhere. Because almost as if a whisper in my ear and a tingle on the back of my neck told me we should do this instead. And then he convinces Lewis that he has a different plan since, Ellie loved that cat and you love Ellie, don't you? Right? That doesn't seem shady at all. Nope, not one tiny iota at all, right?
You're not going to convince me.
I know what I know. It's fine. Promo code Judd's the bad guy. But yeah, them going to this area beyond, it is even more terrifying looking in this version of the movie.
It really is. It's almost like a theory, not like part of the climbing up into the mountain piece made me think of Avengers. It makes me think of when Thanos is taking Gamora up there.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of this.
Yeah.
This reminded
the bones
me of that,
under the water as they're walking through the little puddles and stuff. It's all just a nice touch. I like that it's just a loon line comes back. I don't think we addressed it last week in the first movie, but he said the same thing with this like horrifying sound, which is definitely the Wendigo. And Lewis is like, what is that sound? He's like, it's just a loon. And I'm like,
not like any loon I've ever heard.
Just a giant evil eldritch loon. Yes. I've heard loons a lot in my day. We don't have them here, really, but I used to go to, like, Canada and Minnesota and areas and go fishing and stuff with my grandparents a lot. And there's loons everywhere up there in that area. It doesn't sound like a loon, and I don't see a lake nearby where they're at in this movie. And in the first movie, in the 1989, there is a huge lake behind the house, so it's like, okay, that's more possible.
Yeah.
But I didn't see any large bodies of water for a loon to be near this house. I don't.
No.
I wonder if that line
No,
is in the book
definitely
as
not.
well, but since it's in both movies. I bet it is. I don't know for sure, but I bet. I'd be willing to bet.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
But yeah, but I just wonder in this scene, you can't honestly tell me that Lithgow's delivery isn't hiding ulterior motives underneath to some degree. It's the line after the... You did good, Lewis. I knew you would. I mean, come on.
Do you think he's possessed by the Wendigo?
No. But for some
Okay.
reason, he's doing its bidding. I mean, we get something went down with Norma, because this non-undead Ellie mentions, what you did with your wife, what you did. And it's not really spelled out what happened, but there could have been some kind of supernatural pact or deal between Norma, or, between Judd and the Wendigo, or whatever power. And he's got to uphold his end of the bargain no matter how things ended up. I think there is something going on there that's kind of under the, underneath a little bit. I like reading into it, and I'm going to always do it. So
I appreciate you reading into it. I just don't know that I agree with you.
Because it just seems like, they're going to bury Church in that first plot, and then the whispers and the voices in Judd's head, and he's like, never mind, we should go here. You'd want to do it for your daughter, right? Let's manipulate you. Okay, now we're going to go, and you did good. I knew you'd do such a good job. You have to do this. It has to be done a certain way. You have to bury the body. It's very ritualistic. It's as if there was definitely a game plan in mind other than just, oh no, the poor girl, let's bring her cat back. It feels so much darker to me. It really does. Now, does he grow to regret what he's done and realize that his actions have set in motion a much bigger tragedy and problem? Sure. And he dies as kind of a, paying an ultimate price for the things that he did. But I think originally, with it starting with Church, I think everything that had to do with Church was him following something that he was told to do.
I don't know about that. I don't know. We can't agree all the time.
Again, like I said, while we're recording this, we have a little bit of feedback. I haven't seen it. But people haven't listened to the other episode anyway, I don't think, really. So
No, because because when we're recording this, it hasn't been released yet.
yeah. So
So they can't.
So we got some feedback of just basic feedback for the movie. But as far as, I mentioned this last week, what people would think of this theory or this idea that I'm hung up on about Judd. I'm curious what listeners have to say about that. And they still haven't had a chance to hear me say that when I'm recording this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to wait. But so again, as you're listening to this, as I've heard from some people about the 89 version, the more things I'm saying today, I also want to hear what people say. I don't know. Am I crazy? Am I alone? I know I'm not alone because I have more notes about it somewhere else. But I wonder what people think. I'm curious. Judd is either bad or he's really dumb. Take your pick.
But when they buried Church up there, he didn't know that this was going to happen, that Ellie was going to end up there.
No.
Like, he didn't do this because he would never have done it if he thought.
But I wonder if he knew that there was some kind of possibility of something. Because it seems like he knows what's going on when it happens. Because we do, again, kind of my last note on him, is when he has that last big conversation with Lewis that he has, where he says he should have never done what he did. And he says that place pulls on grief. It will give you any kind of, sweet reason to do the things. Where I think he's honestly admitting he was being manipulated by the place to do it. He did it because it told him to. He just didn't realize how far it was going to go and the tragic repercussions that would come of it. So he is the bad guy, quote unquote, in the sense that his actions following the commands of this Wendigo and this spirit set in motion these events of evil. He did its bidding, but he's not, quote unquote, a bad guy, as in, actively evil. I think he's a good guy who did a very bad thing and was a pawn of evil in the story in some way, but realized what he did and regretted it.
Maybe. Maybe. I could buy into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could buy into that a little bit. One of the things that stood out to me was this huge fake out. One of the big fake outs was Judd goes upstairs because he hears noise, which I'd really like to know how Ellie got up there so fast.
Can she teleport? Yeah, no, I definitely
There's no way. There's no way. He locked the door. There's no way she should have been up there.
She sneaks over there very silently and quickly. I mean, how does she even get to one house? Because she's literally in her house listening to the conversation between Lewis and Judd. And then the door closes and Judd starts walking back to his house and then she's over there. So it's like...
And 1 second she's getting a scalpel.
Right.
And the next second she's at his house. And I don't understand that. That's like Varys going from, like, getting to King's Landing. Here and back again. Like,
does she
so
have
quick.
little birds as well? I don't know.
Probably. Well, we know that Church likes birds. He likes to eat live ones on the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty gross. So, Judd goes upstairs. He's hearing all these noises. You immediately think that she's going to crawl out from under the bed and cut his ankle.
It's a great, subverted expectation.
Oh my god. And so then he kicks the bed and she's not there and you're just like, oh. Wow. Okay. And then he goes down the stairs and it happens on the stairs. Ellie, of course, in this movie being older, has more strength than little Gage did in the original because she can make quick work with that scalpel.
Yeah.
And Church is sitting at the top of the stairs, supervising everything.
Take him out. He killed me.
It's just one of the fake outs.
Yeah. There were a lot. Like I mentioned at the top where, especially coming a week after watching the original, where it's all very fresh in your head, you're like, oh, I saw the original movie, so I know what's going to happen here. And then they're like, no, you don't.
No, you don't. No, you think it's going to be Gage. But it makes more sense given they're closer to the road than when they were out in the field. Like, Gage getting to the road from being out in the middle of the field just seemed like such a long way for him to get.
Yeah.
This one makes much more sense. He's trying to get to Ellie because he sees her out there. And Ellie goes to get the cat. And I feel like now is a good time for me to say, I'm wondering if the Wendigo, who I think, first of all, I think they don't come back. Their bodies are inhabited maybe by some part of themselves, but a lot by evil and the Wendigo.
Yeah.
Like a lot by that. And I think Lewis taking Church and leaving him by the side of the road out in the middle of nowhere, I think Church came back I think it was vengeful, and I think it was in the middle of the road with the intention for Ellie to die, to punish Lewis for
absolutely.
that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a Wendigo or whatever other spirits that are working within that are inhabiting the body, and so within that they hold on to some like the memories and understandings of that person, and they can use that to manipulate and torment others.
Well, like Church did when Lewis was going to euthanize him. And Ellie, at one point, when Lewis is going to chop her head off with the shovel, like turns to herself for just a second.
Yeah.
Trying to get him not to kill her. Like those types of things, it's very clever in the way that it manipulates people.
Yeah. So I'm good on Judd notes.
Okay, me too.
Again, I just like reiterate, I'm like, this movie didn't change my mind. I think the way that John Lithgow portrayed him gave me just more to chew on in that realm.
You know what? Maybe get a piece of gum next time. Chew on that. So what do you have next on the list?
Well, for living characters, again, just kind of the Creed family. Just a couple notes like Rachel, Ellie, Gage. Not really anything Gage, but I just threw the name in there anyway. There's not a lot with Gage, which is interesting, but I think it's just part of Gage is there, and they have him for that road scene. Just, yeah, to subvert expectations a little bit, but just a couple of short notes.
Him being in the car.
Yeah.
At the end. And you hear the beep beep.
Mm-hmm.
Not because Gage is unlocking the doors, but because they've got the keys.
Yeah.
To unlock it. To get in there and get him.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, so when they move into the house, the Pet Sematary, again, when they first see it, the difference, again, here is it's actually still in current use. Because in the 1989, it seems like, oh, it's just whatever families have lived here in this house have been the ones using it. And here, it's like, no, there's other kids that are living in the area that are taking a dog to it right there. Like, it's just like neighborhood kids and people in the town still
creepy.
Use that spot. It's a whole ritual, with the masks and the funeral procession. And it's very strange, but Ellie is very intrigued and curious about it. Which leads her to kind of sneak away and check it out.
Yeah, because she doesn't want Rachel to know that she's down there.
Mm-hmm.
Those masks remind me a lot of the Wicker Man. There's a specific scene, a parade with those masks. And I don't know if they were inspired by that for this movie, but I'm going to have to look into it because the masks are very reminiscent of what happens in the Wicker Man.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I'm interested in that. I'm going to have to check into it because that's one we're going to cover at some point.
Yeah.
And by Wicker Man, I'm talking about the one that came out in 1973.
Not the Beast.
Not the other. Not the Beast. Yeah, no, not the Beast.
Yeah, but Ellie's curious and goes out and checks the place out, which, Ellie, don't cross over the big stick pile. And I've talked about, she's stopped by neighbor and possible villain Judd.
I like that they introduced Judd in this way, though.
Yeah.
I liked it better than him grabbing Gage off the road.
Mm-hmm.
I like that Ellie is the one that's making that connection. Because as we said earlier, Ellie has a much bigger role in this movie than what she had in the first one.
Yeah. Ellie is the one that brings up Rachel's sister, Zelda, to her during that death conversation, and we kind of get that backstory started a little earlier. And
yes,
then when it goes back, so then, because it cuts away and does more movie, more story, but then when we get back to Rachel thinking on it, this version makes the death of Zelda much more disturbing than 89 did. And it...
Yes, it gave us the death story. It actually gave us the story.
And it puts this extra level of guilt on Rachel that you see that she's been living with. Because it's not like... Because in 89, it was just like, and then she died and my parents weren't there and they blamed me because there's more I could have done. When in this one, it's like, again, I'm not going to put blame on a little girl like that who has no idea. Like, it wasn't an act of malice. She shouldn't have been left alone to take care of her anyway, yeah.
Yeah, she should never have been left in that
But at least
situation.
In this version it is. It's like, well, because of a choice you made, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, we've mentioned a little bit, of course, the very major and shift, like the death scene that shifts everything. Honestly, it's wonderful, yet still awful and tragic, but it's like a triple fake out situation that I had forgotten about. But I think, because you get Gage running out in front of the truck and you're like, well, yeah, here it comes. And then it's like, no, he gets grabbed and the truck swerves out of the way and you're like, so nothing happens. But then this tank off the truck disconnects and it's what hits and kills Ellie. And yeah, they really switched which kid dies in order to surprise viewers who are familiar with the story. And I kind of have to applaud that.
Yeah, because I wasn't expecting it. I really didn't think that they would do it. But by doing it, it opened up a whole bunch of possibilities. Because you look at Gage being a toddler, really.
Yeah.
And not really communicative in the way that Ellie can be more destructive. Mm-hmm. It can tug at your heartstrings more because we got a chance to connect with her before it happened.
Yeah.
And it's just builds the story to be even bigger by making that decision.
And the fact that it happens during her birthday party is just really fucked up.
It is. And she's already not happy. Like, she's already, really sad.
Yeah. And
so
I've talked a lot about, of course, what things happen. So it's not a lot of like notes left. But with Rachel deciding to come back, at first I thought they're leaving out, because I pointed it out last week. I thought it was cool that it was there. And I was wondering, there's like, well, it's not Ellie as the other surviving kid. So do we have this little nod to the Shining kind of thing? And there was a little bit of a hint of it. With Gage, strangely enough, I mean, he's sitting in his crib at her parents' house at Rachel's, and he's saying the name Pascal over and over. He sees him, he knows his name, and later Rachel's on the phone with Lewis while she's in traffic and saying he keeps having this nightmare about the boy who died, and he keeps going on about. So there still is something going on there with Gage. They don't really focus on it as much.
Yeah,
they hint at it. It's there.
Yeah, it's still, I think it's definitely still there. There are those connections, I think, in this movie. There are connections to his other works. Like, at one point, Judd's telling a story about a St. Bernard killing 4 people.
Yeah.
Well, Cujo. Rachel's trapped in traffic when she's calling Lewis to tell him, and there's the Dairy 20-mile sign.
Yeah.
And then, before he starts working at the hospital, Lewis talks about working the graveyard shift.
Yeah.
In the ER. Well, graveyard shift is a name of one of King's other books, so.
Yeah, I liked the 20 miles outside of Derry, because it's even before you really realize she's on her way home. And so, it's a fictional town, but for us King fans, we go, oh, she's back. She's headed back into Maine. Like, I know, I know where that town that doesn't actually exist is.
Yeah.
And lastly, I just say Rachel is maybe the only sane person in this entire thing. When she does come home, she's terrified of zombie Ellie, the Great and Terrible, right? And even when she's talking with Lewis, like, she practically points out that it's like the way that Church came back should have been a big clue that this was a bad idea. Like,
yeah,
it's like, well, it worked on Church, and she's like, did it though? Because you saw what kind of hissing undead asshole that cat became. Did you really not think that something bad was going to happen?
Exactly. I think that though it was his heart. His heart was broken. He was heartbroken over Ellie's death because he had such a connection with her. And I think that clouded his judgment in a big way.
Yeah.
Which is sad. One thing I did find out, because we're always talking about, whenever we cover Stephen King, we're always talking about this town and that town, recurring themes. Ludlow, the setting of Ludlow is about an hour from Castle Rock. That was something that I found out. And I think that's really cool. I feel like someone should be making a map of all these places.
A map of the Maine that doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yes. Because I know all about the Maine that does exist. But not not as much the Maine that doesn't exist.
Could you like map over Maine and like replace certain towns with his versions and his names?
Yep.
And see where they lie.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering. Yeah, because there's one Storm of the Century and I think it's called Little Tall Island reminds me so much of my island that I grew up on, except that we were connected by a bridge.
Yeah.
Not a ferry. So, yeah. It's interesting, and I do wonder. I'm sure someone's put a map together. Somebody out there has put something together. Have to think that they did.
Yeah. But that's all I've got on those. And like I said, I do have more notes that are kind of more undead and dead varieties of characters. But
well, I thought it was interesting that we kind of get the flip of everything, where in the first film, Ellie was the only only person that survived out of that family, basically because she was living with her grandparents, or she was with her grandparents. Yeah. And in this case, we know 3 of the Creeds are dead, and likely Gage after.
Yeah, it's a different take on
It's
the
ominous
ending.
at the end. Yeah.
Because we get Lewis resurrects an evil Ellie. Then Ellie kills and then resurrects Rachel. And then before Lewis can kill Ellie, evil Rachel kills Lewis. And then they go and take him to be resurrected so they can all unlive happily ever after life.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
And then the last living family member is Gage in the car, and based on the way that the movie ends before cutting to credits, it doesn't seem like he has a different fate coming. It seems like it's going to be the same story for him.
No, definitely not. I think I'm glad that they spared us from seeing it.
Yeah.
One thing that was missing from this, there are a bunch of things that were different, but one of the things I appreciated is that there were no accents. No one was trying to fake a Maine accent.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've been kind of getting away from that with some movies, and I appreciate it because it just sounds weird to hear people. I mean, I hear people talk with a Maine accent all the time, and it doesn't sound like what people try to put on in movies. It just seems a little strange. We also didn't get Missy Dandridge as, like, the housekeeper. Mm-hmm. She wasn't in it at all, so we didn't have any of that. I thought Pascal's role was different.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have... I mean, the Pascal in 1989 was a little more funny at times. Like, this is the end of the road for me. He just said things that made me chuckle a lot. This guy was a bit more creepy.
Yeah.
Like, he was always hanging around Gage, it seemed like. So that was a bit, that was a bit creepy. Also, one thing we haven't mentioned is Lewis actually drugs Judd to take him out of the equation so he can take Ellie to the burial ground.
Well, it was because it's like, after this conversation of, like, I shouldn't have done what I did. I should have never let you know about this place. So he knows, like, well, Judd's not going to sign off on what I'm about to do. So, like, make sure he can't stop me.
Yep, exactly. We also didn't get that reenactment of the Timmy Baterman story, but we did get it, like, in a clipping.
Yeah.
Like, when Lewis is doing his research into what's going, the Pet Sematary. They updated the story, though, from him being, like, a World War II veteran to being a Vietnam veteran, and I think that's more to just line up better with the timeline of, being 2019 versus 1989. Those are some of my notes.
Yeah, so the first one, I'm going to talk about, like possessed evil characters, but first, I do want to talk more about Pascal. Because I mentioned it earlier, I was questioning what makes Victor Pascal special. To be someone who is able to warn the family about things that are coming or happening. Is there something that set his death in motion to be used for this? There's a lot of questions. Maybe the book would answer those questions, I'm not sure. But I did go just do a quick little dive, not even a deep dive, a very shallow dive, which is terrible for your neck health. Be careful, don't shallow dive. But honestly, I decided to kind of look into some internet forums, and I went to I have it here, sci-fi.stackexchange.com. Had a little bit of a forum and a through line talking about what is Victor Pascal, who is he, and I read over some of them, but I just wanted to pull out some things I thought were interesting. Basically, the theories kind of state. And this one, I'm not giving any credit to anyone specific because it was just kind of a through line of a lot of people. But that maybe it's just the proximity to Lewis when Victor Pascal dies and the situation of his death, and that Lewis was trying to save him. And that's really the extent of their supernatural connection. It's not like there was anything special about Pascal. It's not that, like, some other outside force pushed him or used him in order to be some kind of warning sign or, guardian to the Creed family. It's just literally a supernatural, the way he died and how close he was to Lewis, that there was this, like, supernatural connection. Maybe Lewis also has some kind of shining ability, just like his son in this movie.
Well, sometimes it can happen where it skips a generation, but I think sometimes it doesn't
Right.
skip a generation.
So, yeah, so that's kind of the other line. But for obvious reasons, I wanted to pull out a couple comments that I really appreciated. This one comes from the user Damon on there, who says, I've always thought Victor Pascal was more of a guardian angel who tried to help Lewis because he tried to help him. And the evil wicked character is Judd Crandall, who takes Lewis to the cemetery and entices Lewis into using it, even though he knows it's not right. And now this is, again, talking more about the original version. So, he says, I always thought it was don't judge a book by its cover thing because Pascal, although good, looks evil. And Judd, although evil, appears harmless and good-natured. But then here's an interesting flip side from the user Cassidy Small over there on Stack Exchange, who said, I believe that Pascal, although represented as a warning sign, is actually entirely malevolent. I think the evil of the land used the embodiment of Pascal because it was an immediate and sensitive connection to Lewis. Without Pascal's involvement, Gage, again going back because it's the original that they're referring to, might have never been reburied, and Rachel would have never shown up just in time to be killed.
This is a really big mindfuck.
Right.
I think. Yeah, it's definitely a mindfuck.
So somebody on that, the one user followed with my mindset of Judd, and then that other one took a different approach with Pascal really being the evil character, and
oh my gosh.
I thought that was interesting too. Oh.
That is very, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, either way, Pascal's not really the smartest about how he goes about doing things. When that first dream where Lewis wakes up in the night, he's like, now see this exact place that I brought you and told you about? You should never go here or know about it. It's like, well, then why did you wake me up in the first place? Like, what?
Isn't that like when someone says, I have a secret, but I'm not going to tell you?
Right.
Like, it's going to drive you crazy, so you feel like you have to go there, or you have to do things, or you have to get the person to tell you the secret.
Right. It's maybe if Pascal just never appeared or said anything, then
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Judd takes him out there anyway, regardless, but Pascal and Judd are in it together. They're in cahoots. No, I don't actually believe that one, but
You're coming up with a lot of conspiracy theories tonight. Maybe we should get Elmo to come back and finish the podcast.
Maybe. I don't know. He's busy. He's watching Saw.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
He couldn't get through Pet Sematary. How does he think he's going to get through Saw?
He can be real sick sometimes.
Does he think it's a spin-off of Bob the Builder?
Yes. He's in for a treat. Or anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, just other things with like undead things. Like when it's revealed that Church had come back to visit Ellie in the night, come through the window, that the L, one of the L's in Ellie on her blocks on her name on the windowsill got knocked over, and now it just reveals a big lie on the window. I thought that was fun.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. L-I-E.
That's
just
interesting.
Left standing. Yeah, that was cool. With Undead Church being creepy and hissy in the closet, I really liked the line from Rachel where she's like, I thought you said he was dead, and they talk about it, and she follows up with like, well, good thing you're not a fucking vet. I laughed a lot. That was really funny.
That was really funny. Again, I think their connection in this, you could tell more. Like, I bought it more. Mm-hmm. Their relationship. They just seemed so cold in the first one.
Yeah. Church being just a very undead asshole, scratches Ellie, later Lewis after he drops a dying bird on the bed. They make Church scarier in this one.
Yeah, they do.
Which again makes you question more as to why there was a choice made to resurrect Ellie, because you're like, I mean, if the cat's going to be that creepy and scary and evil, then what do you think a human being's going to be like?
I mean, Church just brought a snack.
Yeah.
He was trying to share.
Yeah.
They were kind of trying to do something else at that time, but,
Lewis has another vision after following creepy Church down to the basement, and then kind of gets lured back into another door. And it feels like that vision, because that vision kind of ends with the truck and the road, and I almost feel like this vision is stating that what is going to happen to Ellie, because it hadn't yet, is directly because of the choice to resurrect Church.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost as if the powers that be over these burial grounds demand a replacement death. Church was dead, and now he's not, so something else has to fill that death void. So then Church arrives to set in motion Ellie's death. It feels like a pretty surefire hint towards that like...
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Those cats that were involved in playing Church, there was a lot that went into that. A lot that went into it. We
talked about a little bit with Ellie casting, which switching the dead kid to Ellie is a good idea, especially with the casting of Jete Lawrence, like we said.
So amazing.
Because again, we talked about, like, she's so adorable and charming, and you get connected to her that, after death, I get teary about her character. But then, this back half of the movie, same actress being able to morph into this other aspect of that character so well, where the change in her voice and her demeanor, and this, like, her holding her one eye droopy and moving, like, even her movement, the way her body moves is, like, purposefully different. Like, bravo. I just think that kid did an incredible job, and I'm surprised I have not seen her in more things since 2019.
I know. I don't think that she's done a lot. I know that the directors felt really grateful that they found who they felt was the best person to play Ellie because of the range that she had. I hope that we get to see her in more things. That's how we feel, I think, on this podcast. When we get kids in movies, like, sometimes you never see them again.
Yeah.
But it is always amazing when you get someone that you know is extraordinary, because you want to see them go on and do more.
Yeah.
Just to see
sometimes
what they
it
do
pays
next.
off and you see them. Because I remember, go back, Love and Monsters. I think that was really my first introduction to Ariana Greenblatt, and being like, oh, she was great in the little role that she had. And now, like, we covered when she was in 65 recently. But even, and she's gone on to be, like, she's done Marvel. She was in the Barbie movie. I had a pretty big role in that. And
she was great in the Barbie movie.
And then just recently, she portrayed young Ahsoka in the Ahsoka TV series on Disney Plus, and had, like, a whole episode that really ranged around her in cases with flashbacks or kind of these dream sequences. And she crushed it. And so it's like, yeah, it's good to see. Sometimes it does pay off. I want to see more. And then we do, and it's worth it. And it's so good.
In her spare time, she was on Dancing with the Stars. I think they did a young adult or a junior version, and she was on that. She did pretty well. I think she was top 3.
Oh, nice.
She did very well. I loved her in the Barbie movie. Yeah, I thought that she was really... she was precocious, like, because she's playing a teenager, and at this point, it's like, yeah, she's coming across with that sass.
Yeah.
And it was just great.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she did such a great job. That movie does not fit in our universe here, but I know that you loved it as much as I did.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. It wasn't what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. No.
It was great. I mean, it was great. Period. But it was incredibly well put together. So.
Yeah. With Judd coming over, that whole, did you do something, Lewis? It's not too late to undo it. And Ellie took that personally.
She takes a lot of things personally. Like, that's how she was with Rachel. She's like, Mommy doesn't want me here. That's okay. I don't want her here either.
Right.
It's like, it doesn't take much to piss her off.
Yeah, after Judd says that, that's when she goes upstairs and grabs a scalpel and then teleports, uses the teleporter to get over to his house. But yeah, I just started singing Senses Fail, Buried Alive, as soon as like she went upstairs and grabbed that. So let's play Dr. Bang. We'll operate today. Incisions must be made. We could help solve this case. We need a scalpel now. Under white lights you lay. We need to hurry up before the flesh decays. Away. I'm sorry, I got caught up. I love that song. Senses Fail is great. Anyway, I was singing that like during the whole scene of grabbing the scalpel. Yeah.
Rewriting it in your head?
What?
Were you rewriting it in your head?
No, those are the actual lyrics to that
Those
song.
are the actual lyrics?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever heard that song.
It's a good song. It's a great song.
Now I've heard part of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a great song. Anyway, yeah, we talked about the other like subverted expectation with the, picture frame on the floor and Judd like kicking the bed, and there's nothing there because you're expecting her to reach out with the scalpel, but then she gets the assist from church to do it on the stairway. Again, there's that mention of something about Norma because we get Norma's face under the mask, and
I like that. I like the morphing and the way that they did that because it just made me, that's what really sold to me the presence of the Wendigo, the presence of the evil.
But again, it's something that's just like, what you did with Norma. And I'm like, did Judd also try to bring Norma back with the burial grounds and something went poorly? Did it lead to whatever connection he has with the Wendigo? And then I guess all of the undead share this kind of like hive mind and mentality and vengeance in this case. Or at least they really know how to get Judd psychologically with the information that they have and faces that they can use and things. She does the same to Rachel later with how is Ellie or anything that's not supernatural going to know? And you prayed for your sister to die, didn't you? And you right.
It's using it's like it knows enough that it can use everything against you.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, this church is also highly approving of the murder of Judd. Sits up there in the stairs like, yes, his work is done and you've ended it. But yeah, Ellie gets super terrifying. Yeah, you mentioned that I don't want her either line. She lures Lewis out of the house so that she can go finish off Mommy. Yeah.
And Mommy dies trying to save Gage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? She's trying to get Gage out of there.
Yeah. And
by dropping him out the window.
Yeah, and then what's different, we talked about the ending, but like in the 89 version, and I assume the book as well, I mean, it's kind of stopped, at least for a time, with Gage is killed, and then Lewis is really stupid and resurrects Rachel and kind of begins things again. But here, there is no even short-term win. Whatever, Ellie or whatever she is now wins the day. Like, does not have a loss in this. Everything that they plan to do, whatever this thing is within Ellie, is what happens. She takes over, she comes in, and it ends with her killing and resurrecting this whole family.
Yeah, it's, the book kind of ends more like the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still a lot of talk about how that place influences the people that are around it.
Yeah. And of course the ending credits kick on. Sorry, I was going to say ending credits kicked on, and we get Pet Sematary once again, the music with the credits. This time it is a cover by the band Starcrawler, but it's also really good.
Yes, it was still really good. Yeah, still really good. I enjoyed it. You can't, every time I think of this movie, well, there's always that scene, but I always go to that song, like that, I don't want to be buried. Yeah, it goes in my head, like right away.
Yeah.
It's just there.
All right. Well, that's all I've got.
Is that all that's all you've got?
That's
well,
it.
I am gonna, you know what? I got a couple things. First, I want to talk a little bit about the cats, because I want a Norwegian forest cat. After seeing, because it's just so pretty. So the cats were trained by Kirk Jarrett and Melissa Millett. There were 5 cats in total, and they were all rescue cats. Like, none of them were professional actors or anything at that point. Only 4 of them were listed in the credits. Leo, Tonic, Jaeger, and JD. There was one other one that's not mentioned by name that was really irritated and stressed out by the noise on the set, so they didn't work out. But the other 4 were in. Leo and Tonic did the primary acting in all the key moments. Tonic was more the action cat and did a lot of the living church stuff. Mm-hmm. Leo did more of the undead church stuff. They were each paired with one of the others as kind of an understudy. Like, Jaeger was an action type cat, so was paired with Tonic, and JD was paired with Leo. After filming wrapped, Jarrett adopted Leo, and Millett adopted Tonic. The other 3 that were there, even the one that got scared, was also adopted. It took about 2 months of training to get the cats comfortable with the makeup. Otherwise, they'd want to lick it off, and that's not what they were looking for. At this point, after the training period, the cats really weren't too stressed. They ate food, treats, drank water, used litter box, all while they were getting their makeup done. So it was like they had made it something that was just a common thing for them. Mm-hmm. In the closet scene, they used this non-toxic makeup on the cat, along with fake scabs, and they cued him to stay, and he didn't move. They also used egg whites and cherry knoll chalk block to make the fur look really matted. As you remember when Ellie's brushing. Mm-hmm. They also stuck dried grass and leaves and dirt on after to make it look icky. For fake blood, they just used regular, corn syrup mixed with food coloring, organic food coloring, to make it, look like blood. Sadly, Leo passed away on May 30th, 2019. And he has his own Instagram account. So there's like this post there, but there's lots of different things. Different videos of them on the set. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
I got way in a rabbit hole about these cats. Probably because I have a cat that we adopted back in June. And so I'm kind of like, I don't know. I just was obsessed with what they did with the cats. The only other things I have to say about this movie there's 2 things. Paramount decided originally they were going to do this film, or they were going to develop a script or an adaptation in March 2010. It wasn't until October 2017 that they actually announced they were going to move forward, and that Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmyer were going to be the directors. They had to move forward with it at that point because Stephen King had sent them a termination of rights to the book because the time was running out, because companies pay for rights to develop a medium, whether it's TV or movies. They pay for those rights. Well, there's a limited amount of time. And so they got the termination. And so they figured they'd better do it, or they were not going to get to. And my last piece, we already talked about it. The prequel film, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, released on October 6th on Paramount Plus. Can we say Halloween holiday special, maybe?
Think so.
All right.
We may be back with more Pet Sematary way sooner than you even would expect.
And this one is a prequel, and it's about Judd. So maybe, Pake, you'll get one more opportunity to push it home to get me to believe and understand and accept your theories.
So this movie might show him making a pact with the Wendigo.
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
I know. Yeah.
I won't get to watch it until...
Yeah,
till we cover it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah,
so
I haven't
we
seen
did
it either. I don't know, but who knows? This like prequel origin movie just might prove that I'm not crazy after all. Either that, or it's going to prove that I am completely wackadoodle, which, I mean, I am anyway most of the time.
Oh, man. Well, we did get through it. We did it. We did a double dip.
Yay.
which
want
I
mine to
wasn't
be
sure
Rocky
we'd
Road.
get to one, but you know what? I want Heavenly Hash.
I have no idea what that is.
It's kind of a chocolatey marshmallow almond. Or maybe that's Swiss chocolate almond. I don't know. I want something chocolatey.
Rocky Road. I would go buy a pint of Rocky Road. Maybe I'll treat myself. Anyway, Pet Sematary, done. And there's the feedback phone to cut me off.
Oh
talking
boy,
about ice cream,
I
'cause
wonder.
I could go all day.
I wonder what our listeners think.
Let's see. All right, we do have some feedback this week. Good little bit, actually. That's awesome. I'm glad that people are coming through, hitting us up with some Pet Sematary feedback. It's going to be great. And I will let you, Daphne, start this journey off.
So we heard from our good friend Mark, who had the following to say. Hey, Daphne and Pake, sorry this is not a voicemail or a voicemail recording. I think I lose a lot when I send in feedback lately, but I do love this movie. I actually saw this movie in the theaters with my sister, Tamra. She hates horror movies. I loved the movie and still do to this day. It was an adaptation that I always thought was done well and shouldn't have been remade. But I did see the remake from 2019 and thought that was an interesting alternate reality of the book. But I still love the 1989 version more. I think it has to do with the scare and thrilling tactics. I love the fact that the Ramones song was a huge focus of the film's promotion since I'm a huge Ramones fan, and the video was a great push for the film on MTV. Plus, I love the gore and horror within it, like when Pasco shows up with his brains dripping out and warns Lewis all the time. Judd's death and how they achieved that effect with his Achilles heel cut and mouth cutting. The eerie look of Rachel at the end killing Lewis. She had no eye and it was oozing. So cool. And of course, Rachel's sick sister flashbacks. That still gives me the creeps. Plus, how they made Gage super creepy as a little undead murdering child. I'm surprised that Miko Hughes hasn't been scarred from this due to filming and legacy within life. He just embraces it when you see him at horror conventions. This was a great movie for its time and is definitely a movie must for people during the month of October to watch for Halloween and the month of horror that should be celebrated. I look forward to your thoughts about the movie and what you think of it, plus all the cool stuff Daphne finds about the movies. Talk to you guys later.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Great stuff there. All right. Let's see. The next one comes from Mary. Says, this story. I was a devoted Stephen King reader until this book came out. It made me so angry when you knew what was going to happen happened. I stopped reading for a while. I've gotten over it now, but boy, this was a rough one.
I can see why that would happen. Tony says, genuinely heartbreaking and super creepy novel. One of my favorites by Stephen King. The movies weren't that great. It's hard for me if I love one version to love another, but that's me. Highly recommend the novel.
Nice. All right, and this one, actually, Elmo, did you want to take one?
Okay, maybe, no, that is way too much reading. It's a lot of words and I don't want to do it, so bye.
All right.
Okay. I guess you have to take it, Peg.
Yeah, I have to take it. Maybe he'll come back in for something else. He wanted to get involved earlier, so I figured maybe he could, but yeah, whatever.
No.
He's gonna do what he does.
It's too much for him.
Yeah. Anyway, this one comes from Laura. It says, I was obsessed with Stephen King as a teen and read lots of his works back then. Pet Sematary was definitely the one that scared me the most. I enjoyed the OG movie, but the special effects were never able to capture the fear I felt in the books. Especially with Zombie Gage. He was much more mangled and horrific in my imagination. This remake started off well, giving me the same chills I got in the book, especially with the masked children, but that ending. It was so lame, it ruined the rest of the movie for me. Zombie family? Ugh. If you get the chance, look up Pet Sematary 2019 alternate ending. It's the ending from the book and would have been way better.
I did watch it at Laura's suggestion, and I did like it better.
Nice. I'll have to look that up.
The way it ended, it was still very haunting.
Mm.
But not quite as,
completely bleak.
Yeah, not completely bleak. There was something that happened in the ending, though, that Maybe we'll talk about it when we cover our Halloween special. I'll just bring it up at the end or something. But yeah, there was something at the end of it that just was kind of unsettling.
Mm.
So Garrett said, Pake made some good points about Judd being the villain, as much as I like Judd.
Wow, what an intelligent and wonderfully thought out comment and feedback. That is so great. And I love that Daphne was the one that had to read it.
That doesn't seem okay to me. It just, no.
Thank you, Garrett. I feel seen in some capacity.
Goodness.
And the next one coming from Alma says, LOL, I had said I was glad you guys weren't doing this version. I actually just rewatched this one at work, and I remembered why I didn't like it. I hated the ending. I remember thinking it was going to be scarier when it first came out because of the trailers, but I was really disappointed. I look forward to hearing how y'all compare the two. P.S. Pake, I'm with Daphne on what y'all were talking about on the last cast. Yep, you are way off with your idea on the old man.
Yay! Thank you, Alma.
And it's back in my court. Yeah, I get my comeuppance immediately.
Yes,
on the
you do. It's great. Thank you, Alma. Appreciate your support. Sam says, I really like this version of it as well. It was different in an innovative way. A killer preteen feels more terrifying to me, and that bleak ending got me. It also leaves me curious as to how this played out. Is there just a demon outbreak in Ludlow now? I do wonder about that.
Yeah, good question.
We are getting the prequel that's coming out. It already is out right now.
Yes.
And we are covering it for our Halloween special, so we're not going too far away.
Mm-hmm.
From Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
We'll be doing it for the Halloween special.
All right. And then lastly, this one comes in from Catherine, who says, I've avoided watching this after finding out they switched the deaths of the children, but I just can't skip a week of Run for Your Lives. Aww. I watched it last night and was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy Judd's character as much, but that might be because I see Judd a bit differently after listening to Pake last week. The theory doesn't match the book, but it does fit the movies more than I'd like to admit. I did not anticipate most of the ending, especially poor Gage's fate, but loved how they changed it from the original. I wonder if the prequel Bloodlines will answer the concerns about Judd's motivations. Perhaps there's another double dip in the future with Bloodlines and Pet Sematary 2. The 90s sequel is actually a lot of fun with Edward Furlong, the kid from Terminator 2, as the lead.
Yes. We might cover that one at some point.
To that. But as Daphne did just say, we don't have to worry about a double dip in the future. You will get Bloodlines in just a few weeks. We will release that on Halloween.
On Halloween.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we take a break in our schedule, and Halloween falls on a Tuesday. We will be posting our Halloween special on that Tuesday.
Yeah.
We will then be taking a break for a few weeks. You know that we do this between seasons all the time. We haven't really talked about it. We've just kind of been chugging along. However, yes, our break is coming up, but we will be giving you a special Halloween episode, our Tremors episode that we always do, plus our Look Back special.
Yeah, so you have
those are all coming.
3 more episodes after this one before our break. So we'll be with you a little bit longer, but then we'll be gone for a month or so, and then come back, hit hard with the next season. We are already planning our list of movies for the next season. I think we've got a good list already going, so we'll hit it strong. I'm excited.
Yeah, and there's some good ones coming out that we're going to have to cover as soon as they're available for the masses to watch. So, yeah, you know that we've got you covered next season. But enjoy what we're bringing this season because there are still a couple of fun episodes left. We always love your feedback, and you can find us at Facebook and Instagram at Run for Your Lives Podcast. You can message us on X at RFYL Podcast or email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. So go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links that you'll ever need. And leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That is the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we do. I say it every week, but it's always true. Of course, speaking about sharing the love, got to give those shout-outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us. Starting with my other podcast, Strange Indeed, which, yeah, as mentioned, they've been the past couple of weeks doing these Great British Bake Off collection 11 episodes as they've been dropping on Netflix over there. But also what's really exciting is, as I've been building up for like a month now, it feels like, the fall of the House of Usher on Netflix is here. It's out. And as you're listening to this, episode 1 should be up. I think Rima's gonna get it up pretty soon, so if it's not up, then it will be up like by tomorrow, so definitely check. But yeah, it should be up right now as you're listening. We are back on our journey with Mike Flanagan, and that first episode exceeded the high expectations I already had. It was so good, and I'm excited to go on this ride with this show. It's gonna be fun.
I definitely agree, because I love the short story. I love Edgar Allan Poe and his works. I had high expectations because that is what Mike Flanagan has done to us. He has made us realize that TV can be creepy, it can be innovative, thoughtful, and just fun to watch, and he's killed it every time.
Yeah.
So this is no different. I am so excited. I can't wait to listen to you and Rima breaking it down, because I have my own opinions, and now I want to know what you guys are thinking about some of the stuff we got to see in this one.
Yeah. So definitely, if you are a fan of Flanagan, fan of Poe, fan of Netflix horror, go check it out. Follow House of Usher, and let us know. Listen to that over on Strange Indeed. Give us some love over there, too. But besides that, there's so much other great stuff going on Podcastica right now. We have Lokiverse going on, because Loki season 2 is out. That's what I gotta do, like, right after this. Holy crap, I almost forgot. So now that I'm reading that. Gotta watch Loki tonight. So Alex, Sydney, and Kirk are covering season 2 week by week over there on Disney+. So go check that out for sure. Over on The Cast of Us, you can check Jason and Lucy covering the new Walking Dead Daryl Dixon series, as that's running weekly as well. I've also really been enjoying that, and their coverage has been super good.
Yeah, me too.
Greg and Veronica wrapping up their coverage of The Wheel of Time over on Amazon Prime, so definitely go check that out as well. Greg is a huge fan of that show. He's read all the books. He's a big Wheel of Time guy, so there's a lot of insight and stuff on there. So he's got a lot to say about that series. So definitely, if you're a fan of Wheel of Time, go check out that podcast. There's a lot of good stuff there for you. And then Ben and Kristen on the Revisited podcast, still just kicking along with Ted Lasso, all of the great stuff over there, you know. It's gonna be a good time for sure. Rewatching Ted Lasso, lots of laughs, lots of tears when they get really a little bit further into the series for sure. It's just such a wonderful show, and I'm so excited they're covering that and revisiting it. And then a little outside of Podcastica, of course, lots of other great coverage on great shows. Got to give some love to TV Podcast Industries, covering The Wheel of Time and the new Amazon Prime Boys spin-off show, Gen V. So that's also tonight. I got to watch that. Man, I've got so many other plans that I didn't know I had, and then I remembered I had them. Now I got to watch this stuff.
You have so much to do. You have a very, very busy weekend coming up. So
do indeed. And then also with Loki and Gen V, you can catch coverage of those episodes on those shows over on Panels to Pixels as well. Let's do that. And then also, speaking of Mark with Panels to Pixels, his other podcast, Adrenaline Cinema, has got another episode up this week with his friend Frank coming in to join him for Escape from New York.
It's a good one.
So definitely check all that out. Lots of great TV and movie podcasts with our friends and people around us. Lots of good stuff to listen to. You'll never run out of awesome entertainment with Podcastica and other networks near and dear to our heart. There are others. We got some good podcasts to send you your way. I promise. Go check them out. You will not regret it. But you can come back here next week. Like we talked about, we got a few weeks left. And what are we doing next week? We mentioned it a little bit. It's a big one.
It is. So next week, we will bid adieu to one of our most favorite and iconic characters as we tackle the final film in the Tremors franchise. It's time to visit Shrieker Island and lay to rest this wonderful yet chaotic world where Burt Gummer is king, and we are all just along for the ride for wherever this adventure takes us. So yes, we are going to be talking about the 2020 film Tremors Shrieker Island, It's directed by Don Michael Paul. Of course, it stars Michael Gross as Burt Gummer. He's back again to take on those pesky graboids. But this is the last film that's in existence.
Yeah. As of now, that is. We talked Tremors stuff, I'm a big Tremors fan, so if you listen to our Tremors Fest episode, if you listen to that, then you'll know that we have lots to talk about as where the future of this franchise could go. But as of right now, yeah, this is it. We've kind of finished up our Tremors run as of next week. So hopefully you'll check it out and enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm sad. I had never seen past the first one when we started this adventure, so this is going to be bittersweet. But we have some other ideas on how we can keep the Tremors love going, so even though the films are done. And with that, we've reached the end of our episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye!
Okay. He's on it.
Bye-bye!
Yes. Bye-bye.